Hello everyone and welcome to the Council of Elrond, your go-to podcast for open discussions on all things Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. I'm here with Dave, and today we're going to start a mini-series where we take a deeper look at the Great Rings of Power. Not the upcoming Amazon series, but the actual Rings of Power from the Lord of the Rings. But seeing as the ever-approaching and highly anticipated Lord of the Rings series has been entitled The Rings of Power, it's probably a good idea to familiarize ourselves with these artifacts and see what all the fuss is about.
It began with the forging of the Great Rings.
So, welcome again to today's episode. Dave, are you excited to talk all things Rings of Power?
Yes, and I do think that it's not fair to say that it's not about the TV show, because the TV show centralizes around the Rings of Power, so I'm sure if you're looking for TV show things, you'll probably find them in this episode too. I don't know.
Of course. Well, I mean, as we discussed before, we thought it'd be a good idea to fill our listeners in on any details about these rings. I think there's going to be a lot of things that will be of interest, and seeing as the title of that series is The Rings of Power, I'm assuming they're going to play a pretty huge role in the series as a whole. And so we are going to explain all about these rings, but I thought it could be a bit too much to do it all in one episode. So we're going to do a little mini-series, and today we're going to mainly focus on the three rings for the Elven Kings under the sky. But before we get to the Elven Rings, David, quick question for everyone listening at home. How many Rings of Power are there in total?
20.
Quick maths, good man, well done. So we know that there's...
No, I would never be able to figure that out. I just remember that from a previous podcast.
I mean,
I was like, oh, it's exactly 20, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's 3 plus 7, and then 9 plus 1.
3 plus 1. Yeah.
3 plus 7 is 10, 9 plus 1 is 10. So 3 elves,
quick math.
7 dwarves, 9 men, and 1. Quick maths for a slow 9-year-old. So anyway, let's start at the beginning. It's always a good place to start, and look at who created the rings and when. So again, Dave, I'm going to push this over to you and ask you, what can you tell our listeners about who created the rings and when were they created?
Ooh,
I'm not looking for an exact date or anything. That'd be
or an exact person.
Or an exact person.
Just the race.
I'm sure you know.
So I'm sure, like, physically, it was Celebrimbor, I think.
Yes, very good. Well done. That's an exact name. Well done. Good man.
If we look at the name, or if we look at the really good game, what is it? Shadow of Middle-earth? Or
Shadow of Mordor.
Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
That's where you have that Celebrimbor wraith.
Yeah, that's class.
It's not really canon, but that's probably the first time I found out who actually created the rings, because I think you just assume it's Sauron if you hadn't read the books or done any other lore searching. But Celebrimbor is the man, and when did he create them? Sometime in the Second Age.
Well done. Very, very good.
Because that's when the TV show is based. So,
exactly. Yeah. So again, there's probably going to be lots of our listeners that don't know too much about the ages and the dates, and very often people are like, oh, the year 1300 of the blah, blah, and you're like, I don't even know what they're talking about. So there are 4 ages. There are 3 main ages, I suppose, and the Lord of the Rings takes place in the Third Age, the end of the Third Age. But the series that we're going to be seeing by Amazon is going to be taking place all in the Second Age. So that was when the Rings of... And just to give you an idea, I think the Second Age was like 3,500 years long. So...
Yeah, they're not like very specific. It's not like each of them is 1,000 years or...
Well, I think that there are exact years. It's the first age is a bit confusing because it mixes with like the year of the trees or also some sort of
the year of the trees comes before the first age.
Yeah, and let's not get into it now. It's a big
that's another.
Okay. Because each year is like a lifetime or whatever. So
are we talking about Shire reckoning as well?
Shire reckoning, that just throws it all off kilter.
I reckon it's about 3,500.
Exactly. So I think
it seems like each age is a very long time.
Yeah, it's like 3,400 and something. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, so these rings, as you said, also Celebrimbor is the man. And yeah, if anybody plays any of the games, if anybody has ever played the Shadow of Mordor on the PlayStation or on Xbox, it's an excellent game. And Celebrimbor features, and he's this wraith smith, and he's just there with his hammer, just smithing away, and you're like, oh, that's our boy, Celebrimbor. Yeah. And he is the one who created the Rings of Power. So again, as you said, maybe you could think that it was Sauron if you just watched the Lord of the Rings movies. But if you watch it back, you'll notice that when Galadriel's speaking in the prologue, she uses like a passive form of speaking, and she says like the rings were given to the elves and that they were gifted to the men. She doesn't say like by whom. So she only says in the land of Mordor, the Dark Lord Sauron forged in secret a master ring. And that's the only time that she actually states that Sauron made that one ring. But you kind of assume, Sauron's here making a ring and other people are being given rings, so it's probably him. But it's actually Celebrimbor was the one, with the help of Sauron. Now we have to add that in as well. So we're going to look now at a little bit of history of how it all started. And so in the year 1200 of the Second Age, Sauron, now he wasn't called Sauron at the time. He was in disguise. What was his name?
Anatar.
Good job.
He was the sneaky elf that came... Oh yeah, he was in elf form and he came to ask Celebrimbor to create some rings for
whatever reason.
We'll get into that
later. So, but no, that's exactly right. So Sauron's name he called himself Anatar, and he gets all buddy with Celebrimbor, and he kind of like pretends to be his friend, and he manipulates him and the elves. And Celebrimbor, now who is he? He is, you may have heard of Feanor. Feanor is the greatest elven smith of all time. This is Feanor's grandson, who is known as the second greatest elven smith of all time. And so, like, you know, smithing runs in the family. Like, they're pretty good at it. So, basically, also, these elves are, you know, he's like, guys, come on, we got to come in and we got to do some arts and crafts. Like, you know, get your glitter, get your little tiny scissors and your
get your Pritt
stick and your whatever. We're gonna make some little designs and some little crafts. And so the elves are like, yes, love arts and crafts. So no, but they are easily persuaded to make these rings, because he promises that they're going to kind of delay time, and they're going to bring. So the elves have always kind of been obsessed with the beauty and the joy of Valinor, which is the place out the Undying Lands out west, and they always want to kind of recreate. They've got like serious Valinor envy. They're just trying to like recreate Valinor in Middle Earth, and basically Sauron says that they will be able to do that with these rings. So they kind of eventually they're like, oh yeah, go on, we'll go for it. And then so they fall for his trick basically, and they spend the next like 300 years learning how to make the rings. So from 1200 until 1500, they're there just kind of preparing and learning and all that. It's a really long course, you know. It's like think of a master's course. It's way longer. Forget your PhDs. This is a 300-year ring making course.
Yeah, you know, it's like, do you want to join this workshop? It's only 300.
The things you can do when you're an elf and you're immortal, you're like, go on, it's only 300 years.
Yeah.
So then in the year 1500, they finally start making the great rings of power, and they make 16 rings together. So we already said there's 20 rings, so they made 16 together. And these were all originally supposed to be for the elves. There was no talk of men or dwarves or anything like that yet. It was just like, okay, we're going to make these. They're going to be given to the elves, and they're going to help the elves do all these great things and recreate this beauty of Valinor in Middle-earth. And then suddenly Sauron just legs it. He just bolts, and he's gone back to Mordor. And they're like, where's that dude, Anatar? Where is he? And they're like,
a really pretty man.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He left. Just gone. And so he heads back. And
why was he taking off?
He just heads off and goes back to Mordor, because like these rings have now been made. So he's like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make my one ring, and then it's going to be more powerful, and it's going to control them ones that we've just made. So he's like betraying Celebrimbor.
Like he suddenly forgot though.
No, like he didn't.
Shite, I left the oven on. He's like, shite, I forgot I have to actually make a ring as well.
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, God damn it. Like, I've been here for 300 years. Shit.
Yeah. So like, it'll be about 20 more minutes, Mr. Editor. So he's like, oh, shite, I better get back. Better turn myself into a bat and fly back to Mordor.
Yeah. Oh, man. So he really dropped the ball on that one. But he heads back anyway, and he starts. And it wasn't a quick process making his ring either. I think it took him like 97 years to make his own ring or something. So
dilly-dallying.
Yeah. Just, you know, hanging around. But so anyway, the rings are there with Celebrimbor, and Sauron goes back off and makes his own one ring, and then Celebrimbor says, I'm going to make my own 3 rings just for the crack, you know, because he's like, you know, I've learned all these skills, I'm going to do it now, and they're going to be lovely rings. I'm going to do them on my own without Sauron. And that is an important detail, that Sauron was involved in the creation of the first 16, but then he wasn't involved for the creation of these 3, which ended up being the ones that the elves kept. So that's kind of, Celebrimbor kind of like betrayed Sauron in that way as well, I suppose you could say, where he sneakily made some rings behind his back as well. But, whatever.
It was similar to how we talked on a previous podcast about how Aule betrayed Eru Iluvatar, but it wasn't really. He was kind of like, I'm just doing my own thing. If Anashar was to come back, I'd probably destroy the rings as well. But
maybe. Yeah. We don't really know.
So that's an important fact, isn't it? That the 3
were made without Sauron's involvement. It is and it isn't. We'll look at that in a moment. Okay. But sorry, I said it took him about 97. It actually took him 100 years, I believe, to make his ring. So in the year 1600, then Sauron finally finishes his own ring. So remember, he arrives in 1200, they start making them in 1500, and then in 1600, Sauron finishes his own ring and he puts it on, and he senses that there's 3 extra rings out there because his ring, they can all kind of sense each other. And so he's like, hey, there's 3, and he's absolutely raging. He's like, bollocks, they made more rings. I wasn't there to get my hands on top of them or whatever. So he notices that there's rings out there, and then the same thing happens with the elves. They realize, there's this one powerful ring that's like controlling the rings that we're wearing now. So they all realized that Anatar or Sauron had been full of it. Like they were like, this guy, he's been, he's treacherous and he's been playing us the whole time. So they all take their rings off so that he can't control them. And then they kind of know the next step is that Sauron is going to come and attack, and he's going to try and claim these rings. So that's pretty much what happened then. So then Sauron, he's like making his way to attack, and Celebrimbor doesn't know what to do with the rings, so he asks Galadriel, and he says basically like, what should I do with these? And Galadriel says, you should destroy those rings. But like, these were like Celebrimbor's precious. He was like, I'm not destroying these rings.
It took them so long to make them as well.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, no, these are great. So he basically sent them away for safekeeping, to be kept. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. So,
smart.
Who do you know does he send them to?
You're talking about like the 16 rings?
No, sorry. I didn't make that clear. So he doesn't give a crap about the 16 rings now. It's all about these three big cool rings that he's made. 3 Elven rings. Those are his most precious because he made them on his own as well. He's like, these are my, my shining jewel of whatever. This is my greatest creation. So he sends them away to certain people.
What year is this again, or what age? We're in the second age, aren't we?
We're in the second age, yeah.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure Círdan has one.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Is that one person he sends it to?
Maybe.
No. Okay. Galadriel?
Yes, he gives one to Galadriel.
And then I was going to say Gandalf, but he's not there, is he?
He's not
there.
Does
he give it to another elf?
He does.
Is it Elrond?
Nope. Elrond eventually gets a ring, but he gives it to the High King. Who is the High King?
Oh, Gil-galad.
Very good. Yeah, well done. He actually gives 2 to Gil-galad, and he gives 1 to Galadriel. And then Gil-galad keeps 1, and he gives 1 to Círdan, who was another...
Pass it on.
Yeah, he was another important elf. So he was the elf that's kind of like in charge of the boats. He's in charge of the Grey Havens.
Yeah,
and
the shipwright.
He's the shipwright, yeah, exactly. So Gil-galad is the High King of all the elves, and he sends him 2. He's like, you're the boss. Here's 2, 1 for Galadriel, 2 for you, and paying his due diligence. And then Gil-galad's like, okay, I've only got 1 finger. He only had 1 finger. He was born with 1 finger, so he had to give the other one to
Could he not put the other one on his toe? He had 1 finger and 1 toe.
He had 1. He made a tongue ring out of it. So he gave
Jack Black at it. I had a few drinks last night and went to the Pearson parlor and
boom. Yeah, that's not what happened. So he gave it to Círdan, and Círdan was a nice fella, and
lovely man.
So basically, that's where they went. Now, also, Gil-galad was way over on the west coast, over in Lindon, which is another kingdom of elves, which we will probably see a lot of in the Rings of Power series as well.
Exciting.
So we saw a few clips of Lindon in the trailer as well. So
And Gil-galad.
And we saw Gil-galad. He was wearing the gold. Yeah, that dude. So then almost 100 years later, in 1697, Sauron comes and he destroys the kingdom. He just completely destroys the kingdom where Celebrimbor is, and he takes all 16 rings. And the 3 rings, he's like, where are the most important rings now? Because these ones are even better than the original ones. So he comes over and he's trying to ask Celebrimbor where those 3 rings are. And he tortures Celebrimbor, and it's pretty gruesome. But Celebrimbor just doesn't give in, and he ends up dying from the torture. And then they kind of like hang him on a spike and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty gross. But anyway, Celebrimbor, he keeps his mouth shut. And so fair play to him. And so Sauron just can't find the location of the ring, so he's gutted. And he was like, Sauron was really pissed. And I'm going to read a quote here. And it's, of all of the Elven rings, Sauron most desired to possess them. For those who had them in their keeping could ward off the decays of time and postpone the weariness of the world. So that's a little sneak peek there into what the rings could do, some of the powers that they have to ward off the decays of time and postpone the weariness of the world. So, again, I told you where the rings were sent, but then where did they end up by the time the Lord of the Rings story rolls around? So Gil-galad, I said that he gave one to Círdan, the shipwright, and then Círdan, basically, he held onto it for like a long time. I don't know, about 3,000 years, I suppose. And then after about 3,000 years, Gandalf and all the other wizards showed up. And Círdan, he got to know the lads, the wizards. Yeah. He got to know them pretty well. And we're told that he was also the most far-sighted of all the elves. And he saw into Gandalf's future, and he gave his ring to Gandalf. And he said this quote, "Take this ring, master, for your labors will be heavy, but it will support you in the weariness that you have taken upon yourself. For this is the ring of fire, and with it you may rekindle hearts in a world that grows chill." So,
Johnny Cash, R.I.P.
Yeah. It was,
so that is interesting that like he, obviously he looked at Saruman and he took one look at him and he was like, I don't know, I'm getting some bad vibes here. I don't want to gift you my beautiful ring.
There's a lot of things that happened over like the course of the millennia where you can see how Sauron starts to kind of get this kind of bitterness towards Gandalf. And that was another little kind of... Saruman, yeah. Did I say Sauron?
Yeah.
Or sorry. Saruman kind of started to get bitter towards Gandalf, and he... that was one of the things as well that was kind of like... But why him? So, I'm the leader here. And they're like,
actually. Jeez. So many things. In fairness, you would be bitter. Maybe like Saruman wouldn't have been as bitter as he was in the end. If
they just picked him more, it's like when you're picking your football team with your mates, and you're like, I'll have Timmy, and I'll have Paul, and I'll have whoever. And then
it's more like when you're picking the basketball team, and you come to the one white guy, and you're like, Saruman the white. Nah, he's you guys can have him. We insist. So poor Saruman, he didn't get picked for anything. So then that was how Gandalf ended up with his ring. Gil-galad's other ring, the one that he ended up keeping, what happened to that one? So basically, he held on to it again for a long time, but then just like before the Battle of the Last Alliance, which we see at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring movie, and we see Gil-galad in there very briefly, him beside Elrond. He gives that ring to Elrond, or Elrondo, as we like to call him. So your boy Elrond. So he gives it to him, and so that's how Elrond ends up having one of the rings. And then the other one just basically stayed with Galadriel the whole time in Lothlorien. And then that's where they end up when we join the story of the Lord of the Rings. And the 3 finally leave Middle-earth then with Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond when they set sail on the ship that sets out from the Grey Havens at the end of the 3rd movie, which we all see, and we all shed a few tears. Now, this is actually a much bigger deal in the books, as it's supposed to be this big reveal, because we don't really know that much about the rings during the course of the story.
So in the end, we realize that these three rings have been in play all along, and as a reader, you're supposed to be like, that's how they did all that shit. That's how they didn't get killed. And these three important characters have been like secretly helping all along and all that kind of thing. So basically, hardly anyone in Middle Earth knew anything about the whereabouts of the three rings until this exact moment. So that's kind of cool as well.
That is cool. Isn't it sort like when you're watching the movies and you kind of think everything is like mystical and magical, but these three rings are the kind of magic that the wearers possess. So isn't there a lot of that in the books where it's like, that kind of explains why Gandalf's able to fight the Balrog and why Elrond's able to like heal people and
like as in,
what the hell
but
does
it's kind of
do? Why she's able to be such a creep, like go inside your brain and go like, hello, Ishkakwi. She just speaks to Gimli like, Ishkakwi.
She's just like ASMR. Galadriel. So we will learn more about the powers again in a few moments, but basically, as I said, this is a big reveal. It's a big like, oh my God, I didn't realize that's how, so it's kind of like a more, like in the movie, you're just so sad about Frodo and like Gandalf leaving. You're like, oh, and then they're like, by the way, here's the other two guys, and you're the other two people that had the rings. And you're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But like, now, it's revealed to us in this moment because also at this point in the movie, even we can see the rings being seen on the fingers of the bearers for the very first time. And a cool thing about the rings is that like the one ring we know can make the wearer invisible, but these three rings had like a weird opposite kind of effect where they had the ability to be invisible on the finger of the person while they were wearing it, so people couldn't see these rings. And
kind of like Tom Bombadil, like what he did to the One Ring.
That's right, actually. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
that is interesting.
Yeah, but we are told that Gandalf wore his ring openly when they boarded the ship, so everyone could see it, and everyone could see the rings on the other two, Galadriel and Elrond's fingers as well. So that was kind of this big important moment. But there is one other moment that I'm going to ask you about now. When is the other moment in Lord of the Rings where we can see a Ring of Power?
In the movie?
Yeah.
Ugh. I have no idea.
Think about it. Like as in, it's spoken about. They kind of mention the ring.
Oh, yeah. When Galadriel shows it to Frodo, and she goes, "This is Nenya. This is my ring. It was gifted to me."
Exactly. That's exactly right. So in Lothlorien. And it's because Frodo is a ring bearer and that he has seen the Eye of Sauron. And so in this moment, Sam says that he can't see the ring and he only sees this kind of light like a star between her fingers. And as
Sam's
I told you,
going blind.
Yeah, Sam just, he forgot his reading glasses. So, as I said earlier, no one knew anything about the whereabouts or who the masters of these rings were. And then Frodo sees it and Galadriel tells him about it. And then later, Frodo in the boats when they're sailing down the Anduin River, he tells Aragorn that Galadriel has a ring. And Aragorn's like, you keep that to yourself. Don't tell anyone. That's like, seriously, hush. He's like, you should not speak of it to anyone. Yeah, so he's like really kind of like getting serious with him. He's like, don't mention that to anyone. That's really important to keep that to yourself.
Poor Frodo. Like if he ever wants to tell anyone anything, they're like, keep it secret.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's just going to explode because he got so many secrets inside.
Exactly.
And Peter Jackson, as I said, he does acknowledge this kind of point. And at the Grey Havens in the movie, when we see Gandalf chatting to the hobbits, he's holding his staff, and we can see his ring on his finger, and that's his ring of fire, and it's that kind of gold ring with this big red jewel in it. So that's that.
Class, deadly. Yeah, no, I actually remember that before I read the book, seeing that picture of Gandalf holding his staff and the ring on his finger and being like, this scene is mega important and here's why. I never clicked into that.
Again, if anybody wants to go back and listen to our episode on Gandalf, we do discuss some of these details in that episode as well. So that's way back in the day.
Way back. Yeah. The second age.
Second age of the Mellon Heads. Maybe the first age of the Mellon Heads. Yeah.
Oh, maybe. This is the second age.
This is the second age. Welcome to the second age.
It's the year of the trees.
So that's a really cool detail anyway. But even though, well, I have a bit of a question for you now, Dave. So even though Sauron did not come into contact with the 3 Elven rings physically, like I explained earlier, that kind of meant that they were not corrupted. So why then were they still under the influence of Sauron? Because I also told you that we know that when Sauron put on his one ring, then the 3 elves were like, oh crap, we're going to take off our rings. Well, all the elves actually took off the rings because they knew that Sauron would be able to control them. So how was that?
Because obviously all the other 16 rings were because is it because Sauron was the one that like taught them and he gave them the tools and the skill set to create these rings? So whatever way he did it, maybe when he was coming up with the ingredients, he was like just a little bit of evil in there.
A little bit of this thing that I can manipulate.
Just a little bit of malice and cruelty and oh god,
way too much. Yeah, no, you are right. The main reason is because basically, even though Sauron was not involved in the process of creating the 3 rings, he still would have been able to control them because he taught Celebrimbor how to make them. So Celebrimbor made these 3 using the techniques that Sauron had taught him, and so he was still then able to manipulate these rings. Maybe not to the same extent of the first 16 that he was actually involved in their making. He was like hands on. So those ones were probably easier to corrupt, but the other 3 had been made using the same technique. So if you can almost think of Sauron as this kind of like computer programming teacher, and he's like teaching the elves how to code, and then they're like using this computing language and these like coding techniques, and then Sauron's like the master coder. So even though he wasn't present, he's like, I know how they code, so I can break their firewalls and crack their codes and kind of stuff like that. So that's kind of the way it was, but. So basically when he made the one ring, that was the most powerful thing, and he was able to control any of the rings that were out there because Sauron was like really good at arts and crafts as well. Like he loved making jewelry. He's really, really good. Okay. So
Lord of the Arts and Crafts.
Exactly. The Dark Lord of the Arts and Crafts. So anyway, so Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond, these are the 3 ring bearers, but then also they have been wearing, we find out at the end, they have been wearing these 3 rings of power invisibly the whole time during the Lord of the Rings. So why then were they not under Sauron's influence? Why were they like, oh, it's okay, we can wear these rings?
Well, probably for a mixer. Well, like the dwarves aren't under Sauron's influence, are they? They're kind of just greedy, and maybe is it just to do with the races? Because like the men just fell to Sauron's corruption really easily. The dwarves not so much, but they became more greedy, and then the elves are just like sound creatures, and
they became more sound.
Gandalf as well. They became more sound, and Gandalf as well. He's a wizard. He's just
but why then? When Sauron made his one ring, why did the elves feel like they all had to take the rings off? And now these 3 people are wearing the rings. So why? What's the big important thing that happened?
Do I get a date?
You do get a date. It's at basically the year 0 of the Third Age.
Damn. Oh, Sauron is killed. Or his body, his physical body is killed. So
and the ring?
And the ring is hidden. It's gone into hiding.
The ring, well, basically Sauron no longer has the ring. So
he doesn't get to. So does that mean in the year 0 of the Third Age or 1 or whatever, all the guys just decide to slip on the rings?
Yeah. Well, like as in, it depends on who you're talking about, but basically, yes, those 3 characters, like the 3 Elven rings, as soon as Sauron got his ring chopped off his finger, he could no longer control all the other rings. So the elves were like, "Nice one, get the rings back on, party."
Okay.
They're delighted. So
such a celebration.
They're like, "Woohoo!"
Everyone just gets their rings out. Oh, that's interesting. Now, that is cool. I just didn't really consider that they all kind of go right together. Everyone, it's kind of like Power Rangers or something. They all just put their hands together. Go,
rings assemble. Yeah. Force of wind. Whatever. So that's like, I mean, we all know like from the big thing about Lord of the Rings is that Sauron had the one ring and that could control all the other rings. You kind of don't really think about when he lost his ring in that battle, when his finger was cut off, he lost the ability to control the other rings, and so nobody had it then. Like, I mean, Isildur had it. He didn't like know how to control it. It wasn't easy to just control the other rings. It took a huge amount of like willpower and stuff. We will look at the other rings and that one ring in a separate episode. But so that was cool. So then in that moment, then like Galadriel and Elrond and Círdan could put their rings back on.
Like, what were they just carrying it around their pockets or around a chain on their neck, or where were they? Or just like,
I mean, according to Middle Earth, that's the only way that you can carry a ring, is it either in your pockets or on a chain, and there's no other possibility. Maybe on their toe. I don't know. As you suggested earlier.
Interesting.
But yeah, so there you go.
Maybe.
So that's another little just thing to ponder. Anyway, let's actually get into the powers of these rings now, because they're not the most like obvious things. They're kind of just like, I'll ask you, what do you think if I say any of the powers from these 3 elven rings? Can you think of anything at all?
Yeah, Gandalf's one is what is it? The Ring of Arnor, or Ring of Anor?
The Ring of Fire.
Or the Ring of Fire, but what does he say? He says, wielder, I am the secret servant of
the
Anor.
The Flame of Arnor.
Oh, right. No, Flame of Udun.
A Flame of Udun.
I am the secret servant of Arnor. Or something like that.
I don't know.
He says something like that. I don't know. He's crazy.
He says, I am the servant of the Dark Lord.
And then the Balrog is like, oh, me too.
Me too. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
are you on Instagram? I'll add you.
So he has the Ring of Fire, so he's able to like do fiery powers. So I can't really remember, but if anyone else can't remember, go back and listen to our Gandalf episode. Powers, so he's able to like manipulate fire and flame, and he's able to, light his cigarette with just his fingers.
Exactly. He's like that guy in
look at a candle and go.
That guy in X-Men, Pyro.
Oh yeah, he was cool. Oh man, that scene in X-Men. Do you know where he like has the lighter and he lights up his whole arm and he's like shooting at the cars? That was the coolest.
When he just like kills loads of cops and stuff.
Yeah. And he's just like blasting them in the ass.
Oh yeah, that's a good scene.
Or do you know Chris Evans from Fantastic Four, where he just like clicks his fingers?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But then I wonder, can Gandalf just go flame on and like, fly?
Gandalf can do whatever he wants. So, are you trying to say, is the Human Torch better than Gandalf?
Ooh, that's another podcast to ponder over who could win.
I think it's a pretty easy answer. But anyway,
so that's Gandalf's ring.
So that's Gandalf's ring. So yeah, well, so just to go back to all of the rings, like Celebrimbor gave each of them different powers. And these individual powers turned out to be hugely important to each of their characters. Although the effects, as I said before, they weren't like exactly really obvious. But to tell you about all 3 rings, first of all, the 3 rings are called Narya, which is the Ring of Fire, Nenya, which is the Ring of Water, and then Vilya, which is the Ring of Air. So let's start with Nenya, which is Gandalf's ring, aka the Ring of Fire. And this was a gold band with a ruby in its center. And all the elven rings had gems, unlike the One Ring. We know the One Ring was just a plain golden band, but all the elven rings had big show-off gems in them. They were like, look at this. So Narya was described as having the power to inspire others to resist tyranny, domination, and despair. So in other words, evoking hope from others around the wielder, as well as giving resistance to the weariness of time. So this suggests that the main magic around this ring is one of encouragement and putting hope in people's hearts and helping them to resist tyranny and despair. And this is one of the things it's kind of hard to see sometimes, but it's easy to acknowledge that Gandalf, he's like always strengthening and reassuring the people around him, and we can see how important or how like despairing it was when the company lost Gandalf in Moria. And it's not only because they were like, shite, he was a wizard and he was the best and he was the strongest, but also Aragorn even says, we must do without hope now, as if Gandalf is the one who brought hope. So that's kind of
Aragorn called hope. So he made
That's
it
right,
do without me.
He's like, I'm out of here, guys. Yeah. So
if you haven't seen it without hope.
If you haven't heard our episode on Aragorn, what his name was Estelle as a young man growing up in Rivendell. And Estelle is the Elvish word for hope. So Aragorn's name literally means hope. So there you go. But Gandalf so Aragorn says that we must do without hope. Anyway, let's continue. Let's move on. In terms then also of it says about it can help people with the weariness of time. It's also something that we see that Gandalf, he like never gets tired or he never wavers in his task in Middle-earth, as for example we see Sauron does, and even through all the setbacks, Gandalf kind of, it's mentioned in the books a few times that he's the one that like really sticks to his task above all the other Maiar, all the other wizards. He's the one that really sticks with his task, and so maybe the ring helped him in that factor as well. So now let's look at Galadriel's ring, which is Nenya, and also known as the Ring of Water or the Ring of Adamant, as we hear her saying in the movies. But I was like, what the hell is adamant? I don't know what that is. So this is I am adamant that I do not know what that word means. Yeah.
I think I do know. I don't know about the last ring, but Galadriel's ring that's the Ring of Water, as you said. Yes. So does that have something to do with where she lives and like she made the land around her like grow more better? It grows more better. She made like not Rivendell, Lothlorien. She made it like beautiful.
And that's the reason Lothlorien is so beautiful is because of her ring, basically. So Now again,
and like you see in the movies, there's always like flowing water and
look at the mirror of Galadriel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the mirror of Galadriel is water based and very magical. So
exactly, Galadriel's plant based, but her mirror is water based. Her ring is it is the Ring of Water or the Ring of Adamant. It's a white ring. It's also called the White Ring, and it's made. What's it made out of, Dave?
Sticks? I don't know.
Mithril. It's made out of mithril.
Trees? Oh, right.
And it has a big stone made of adamant in the middle of it. So what is adamant? It is this kind of, it's like a diamond, basically. It's, I don't know how many carats are involved.
Do you know what it might be?
What?
Might be the same thing that created Wolverine's steel. Adamantium.
Ooh, there you go.
I wonder, is that a thing? Is that a connection?
Galadriel versus Wolverine.
Oh, that's another one we have to see.
Right.
So we got the Human Torch versus Gandalf and Wolverine versus Galadriel.
Right, yeah.
Let's see who Elrond's going to
face. Who's Elrond going to be up against? He's going to have a tough time. What was I saying? I don't even remember.
Something about adamantium.
Something about adamantium. Oh, yeah. So there's a big adamant, a big diamond on her ring there. And to read a little quote here now from the chapter when Frodo sees the ring for the first time, he's in Lothlorien, and it says, Erendil, the evening star, most beloved of the elves, shone clear above. So bright was it that the figure of the elven lady cast a dim shadow on the ground. Its rays glanced upon a ring about her finger. It glittered like polished gold overlaid with silver light, and a white stone in it twinkled, as if the even star had come down to rest upon her hand. Frodo gazed at the ring in awe, for suddenly it seemed to him that he understood. Yes, she said, divining his thought, it is not permitted to speak of it, and Elrond could not do so, but it cannot be hidden from the ring-bearer, and one who has seen the eye. Verily, it is in the land of Lorien, upon the finger of Galadriel, that one of the three remains. This is Nenya, the Ring of Adamant, and I am its keeper. So there she's kind of saying, this is a big deal, all right?
Yeah.
So,
So is it like that she, when Frodo first comes into Lothlorien, does she just get a sense that he has seen the eye before, or does she notice that he's eyeing up her ring and she's like, how does he know what's going on in my finger here? What is it that she like, why does she approach Frodo and tells him all these secrets?
Galadriel is just like a mystical person. She knows.
She's got that French connection.
She knows all the little secrets of everyone. Anybody that said keep it secret, keep it safe to Frodo, Galadriel's like, I know. She's got her ear to the ground. She just knows what's going on.
Ear to the ground.
Yeah. So, but it is a big deal that it's finally been revealed to Frodo, and then about the ring itself and what powers does it have, we're told that it has powers of preservation and protection and concealment from evil. So Galadriel basically...
She's basically a wildlife ranger.
Yeah. She was there protecting the forests and stuff. And she once chained herself to a tree in protest. And...
An end.
Yeah. Galadriel, so she used this ring to protect Lothlorien. And it seemed to hide it from the gaze of Sauron. And then Galadriel she had these kind of powers to make Lothlorien this beautiful, peaceful, and just, otherworldly place. And that kind of explains how Lothlorien appears to be so like ethereal and majestic, and even more than Rivendell, or even more than the Woodland realm as well. They're kind of like, they're also cool, and Rivendell is very elven and like cool, and even in the books we see that like time sort of passes a bit slowly there, and they go in and they come out and they're all like refreshed and replenished. But Lothlorien in the books, when you read that like that time,
different kettle of fish.
It's like they've no idea. They're like all on acid. They're just like, what's going on? I feel like I've been here for like 1 day, but also like 3 years. I don't even know what's happening. So it's like,
and in fairness to Peter Jackson, he does a great job for that, because he does capture the elven vibe.
That scene does drag on.
Like, no, but yeah, that Lothlorien scene, I'm like, where the hell does that come out of? And you don't know when it ends, and it's like, is it daytime? Is it
you have to
nighttime?
watch
There
it like
seems to be
in
a
double
big
time
glare.
so that they can actually speak at a normal pace, because they all speak in super slow-mo. But like, again, it's fitting for, that's the way that the elves spoke. But it's just
and half the conversations are all like telepathy or whatever.
Sure, yeah,
and
exactly.
And so it's just a very confusing time. And as well, do you know,
confusing time in my life.
This is completely separate altogether. But do you know that scene where Sam gets up and starts singing, or he starts reciting a poem about Gandalf's fireworks?
Yeah.
There's that scene where is it Aragorn? He bangs the pillow because Gimli's snoring.
Yeah.
That took me so many times watching it to figure out what the hell was going on. I thought Aragorn was getting pissed off with Sam, and then he bangs the pillow, and then Sam's like, oh, never mind, or whatever.
Oh, really?
And he just like sits back down. Yeah.
Oh,
it took me so long to figure out that Gimli was actually snoring. I thought like Aragorn was just like, shut up, like. And
that'd be such a weird, like, just like Aragorn having a bit of a temper tantrum, just throwing that a little snippet of that in. You're like, Aragorn, he's this perfect man, but he does get angry sometimes. It's like, don't cross him.
Yeah, that scene always confused me. That was always the most confusing scene to me in the Fellowship of the Ring. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? Why is he getting
if any of our listeners are confused, like Dave was initially, we're speaking about when Sam is reciting his poem, or he's inventing a poem about Gandalf's fireworks, and Gimli's having a nap and he's snoring very loudly, and then Aragorn kind of punches him to wake him up to stop him from snoring. So he's kind of saying that Gimli's loud snoring is very disrespectful to Sam's poem recital, and so he hits Gimli, violence, but
the cameraman doesn't show Gimli. Like,
he does. You can see him.
Don't really. But you can't really. They don't like show a face.
That's because there was a double. He was too small. It wasn't really John Rhys Davies.
No, but like they should like show a picture or just like a camera shot of his face and him kind of sitting back and snoring. But they don't. They just kind of you just kind of hear a snore in the background and see like the top of. Nah, they don't. Pretty sure they don't.
Okay. I mean, I did watch it.
We'll just have to watch it.
I watched it like 5 days ago. Anyway,
it's not recent enough.
It's not recent enough. Why did you watch it today?
I'm watching it right now on the screen over here.
Yeah, I'm not even paying attention to what you're saying to me. I'm just currently watching The Fellowship of the Ring. So basically we know that Lothlorien is this kind of weird, as I said, otherworldly kind of place, and it's really cool. It's got that vibe, and Galadriel's been using the ring to make Lothlorien feel like this the whole time, to feel like nothing else on Middle Earth, and it's just time stands still and nothing perishes here, really. So that's all from the power of the ring. So I have a question now. So the first mention of Galadriel in the movies is by Gimli, when we remember they're just walking into Lothlorien, and Gimli says to Frodo that an elf witch of terrible power lives in these woods, and then we hear the in your head whispering of Galadriel for the first time, and she says, Frodo, Frodo, your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom. I should probably just not do that in a whisper because nobody's going to hear me. But anyway, she says, Frodo, your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom. You bring great evil here, ring bearer. So
she was referring to Gimli.
yeah. Don't bring that evil dwarf here. But what does that mean? Not the you bring great evil. We kind of get that. But the first part, you coming to us is as the footsteps of doom. So what's she talking about? Do you have any idea?
I would have just assumed that it was kind of the same thing as the second part, like you're bringing doom towards us, you're bringing great evil towards us, or it's the start of our doom.
Well, that is that is a more like, I don't know, pertinent answer, I suppose. That
what did you say? What is the quote?
The quote is, Frodo, your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
Is as the footsteps of doom. Is she talking about Mount Doom?
No. No, but don't worry.
This is the start of the journey that's going to culminate in death and doom.
Yes. Now, again, you're exactly right, but I don't think you know why you are right. But happens a lot.
Sounds like me 90%. 60% of the time, that happens to me 90%
every time.
Of the time.
So anyway, just to again, it's a bit of a confusing sentence, a bit of a confusing statement, and question.
Very Confucius.
I don't even know what I'm talking about. So as I said, Lothlorien, it's this crazy place where time stands still, nothing perishes. It's like something from another dimension. It's got a completely different feel to everything else in Middle Earth, and that's all thanks to the power of the ring. And it's just like this gem in the whole world, which is quickly turning into the world of men. And so again, the ring is holding it all together. So Galadriel knows that if she helps Frodo and his quest is successful, then the One Ring will be destroyed. And with it, her ring will lose all of its power, as with all the other rings of power. And so if Frodo is successful, then Lothlorien would fade and would be basically just destroyed. But then alternatively, if the plan failed, then Sauron would reclaim his One Ring and she would have to stop using her ring. Thus, Lothlorien would fade and whatever. So the whole thing. So she knew that basically Frodo just arriving meant that now Lothlorien, that this place that she has created and built to be almost like an image of Valinor on Middle Earth, now it's thanks to Frodo. Good man, Frodo. Well done. He's ruining everything. So,
dick.
She explains this to Frodo in this quote, and it's really cool, this quote. So she says, "Do you not see now wherefore your coming is to us as the footstep of doom? For if you fail, then we are laid bare to the enemy. Yet if you succeed, then our power is diminished, and Lothlorien will fade, and the tides of time will sweep it away. We must depart into the west, or dwindle to a rustic folk of dell and cave, slowly to forget and to be forgotten."
Yeah, it's a cool quote, but come on. Dick move to Frodo.
I know, I know.
So no matter what you do,
yeah,
it's going to suck balls.
I mean, it is depressing, and it's a really depressing realization for Galadriel as well, and that is exactly what happens. Lothlorien fades and loses all of its beauty, and everyone leaves, and then it just becomes deserted and ruined. And we do hear about Lothlorien one last time in the Fourth Age, and again, it doesn't get any brighter. It's when Arwen goes there to die.
So that sucks.
Yeah,
but what's she complaining about? She's making this place to look like Valinor. It's basically a copy of Valinor. Why doesn't she just go back to Valinor? I know she's all wanting to stay in Middle Earth and all that, but it's kind of like if you got an illegal copy of a movie, and then the police arrive, and you're like, now I have to give up this illegal copy of that. Just go and buy the real thing. What's she doing in Lothlorien? Sure, half the elves are leaving anyways. Just go to Valinor.
Dave, you should have been there to just talk her into it. Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. Galadriel, what are you doing? You're hanging around here. Would you come on? Get your bags packed.
I know, yeah.
I know you're just lazy and you don't want to pack your bag, but come on, off with you.
She is lazy.
I'm sure, no, there's a whole big important reason why she doesn't want to go back to Valinor. That is another. It's not just. It wasn't just couldn't be arsed. There is a reason which we won't get into in this episode because it's quite a detailed one. But I mean, it's just, she is a bit pissed off. She's spent thousands of years, like, cultivating this beautiful forest. And then, as I said, she loves she's very green, Galadriel. Like, she doesn't even have shoes. She walks around barefoot. And so
she's all into that sustainable energy vibe.
Yeah, she loves it. And so that ring is definitely sustainable energy. That's for sure. Anyway, let's move on. So the final ring then is Vilya, and that is the ring of air, and we are told that it is the mightiest of the Elven rings. And yeah, interesting. And it's fitting, seeing as it's the ring that Gil-galad, the High King of the Elves, he had until it eventually got passed to Elrond. And so then, and Elrond had it and used its magic throughout the entire Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stories. But again, remember, we only have this aha moment at the end when it's all revealed to us. So it's described as being a gold band with a large blue stone set into it. And despite being told that it's the mightiest ring, we're never specifically told its exact powers, but we can probably make a pretty good guess, and we can assume that it helped him with his already natural gifts. We know that he had natural gifts for things like healing and foresight, and forehead.
Just doubled his forehead.
Yeah. We'll give you a massive forehead.
He put it on and it's just like
it became like the eggheads, just like yeah. Elrond, massive head. But the greatest example of healing from this ring, of course, is when he heals Frodo after he's stabbed with the Morgul blade by the Witch King. And Elrond is known as the master of healing. And Aragorn, as soon as Frodo is stabbed, says that he cannot heal him. And Glorfindel, who is also there, who's this powerful elf, says that it's beyond him also. And even Gandalf, who is our, bringer of hope, he says that he was pretty sure that Frodo was going to die. So, despite all that,
he was using the power of his ring to come up with that. He was like, right, let me just slip this bad boy on.
Give me the best words.
He's gonna die.
How can I tell them in a very soft and ensuring way? Frodo, you're probably going to die. So, but even despite all that, Elrond did manage to heal him. So, fair play to Elrond, master healer.
To the Rondo.
Yeah, El Rondo.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. I'd love to see that ring on Aragorn as well, since he was also a master healer, but it's probably better in the hands of an elf.
Aragorn already had his one ring of Barahir, but I mean, that wasn't a magic ring. It was just a cool ring. But
can you put on a few rings and culminate the power?
Ooh.
Like Thanos. What happens if you just put all the Infinity Stones or the Infinity Rings on at the same time? Do you get to
you level up? You're just
you get to snap.
I mean, I think that's a question.
There should be a gauntlet for rings.
Yeah. That's class. Yeah, there should be. But it is a question that depends entirely on who the person would be. And again, it's kind of
it's true.
There's all these kind of questions. What would happen if, Saruman got the One Ring, or what if Gandalf got it, and all this kind of stuff. So again, what would happen if, for example, Galadriel got all three? Well, then it just completely depends on Galadriel's personality and these rings. As I said, Elrond already had these powers of healing and foresightedness before he then got the ring. So they kind of gave him a big power charge and boosted his powers. So
boosted up, leveled up. Elrond's ring, Vilya. So Elrond already kind of had these powers. What's the element of that ring again? Was it air or
air? Yeah. So
earth?
air.
Yeah.
So
and we don't know what the ring's powers are. What the hell was?
Well,
Gil-galad
okay. I will.
else?
I'm going to get into that. Give me a minute, will you?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No. I have more info. For you. So, Rivendell is described as a refuge for the weary and the oppressed, and a treasury of good counsel and wise lore. So this sounds like he can give hope and encouragement to those who come to Rivendell, kind of like Gandalf can with his ring as well. So it's, as I said then, also so it's kind of similar to Lothlorien and all the vibes that Galadriel made for Lothlorien, where it's
vibes,
as in when you're reading the chapters in the book as well, when Frodo goes to Rivendell, it's everything's the water is so delicious, and I feel like I can drink this water and get recharged.
I want to drink that water.
Oh man,
after a heavy night on the beer.
You're just waking up with
malt.
just a sandy mouth, and you're just big jug of water. Oh, it's nothing better.
Oh God,
yeah,
it's so delicious.
So
I'd drink that mirror.
Yeah, when you look into the mirror and Frodo just sticks his head in and
faces.
Yum, your mirror is delicious.
Did you just drink my magical power?
So basically that's another thing that Elrond did create, this sort of mystical vibe to Rivendell where people could come and feel like replenished and recharged and all that kind of stuff. So that is one thing. But then also, as you said, it is called the Ring of Air, and like Gandalf has the Ring of Fire, and we know that Gandalf is good at fireworks. He can light up little torches, and he can light a campfire in storms, and he's got burning energy, and he's able to deal with the Balrog, who's this flame demon or whatever. So that's this Ring of Fire. Again, we've probably got more instances with Gandalf because we just see him more. He's just a more important character. But then Galadriel's water, we mentioned her mirror is made of water. Maybe, plants need water to grow. So maybe that's something involved. So her trees are absolutely hench.
Elves need water.
Elves need water.
Hench trees.
Yeah, her hedges are hedged. These are some hedges. And then Elrond's ring is the Ring of Air, and we don't really know exactly, but one instance could be...
He flies.
No, he doesn't fly, but one instance could be when the water is crushes the Nazgul when they're coming in. Maybe the air had something to do with moving the water as well. So we don't know, but that's something that people very often speculate. They say that air could control the flow of water, and so that was something that could have done as well. We know that it was Elrond with a little sprinkle of magic from Gandalf that made that water crush those Nazgul. So that's...
Why didn't Galadriel help? She's the water one.
I know.
They got the fire and air.
She's
why didn't they send an or fire tornado then?
It's like Pokemon, I suppose. Gandalf's basically like Charmander, and Bulbasaur is
Galadriel.
But isn't...
No, she'd be Squirtle.
Squirtle is Galadriel. And then Bulbasaur, is it... What's he though? Is he just a plant or is he...
He's a plant. No,
we need an air. We need a bird. I don't know any birds.
Elrond could be like Mew or Mewtwo, or what is it?
Just because he's got a massive forehead.
No, because he can fly.
Oh right, okay.
Elrond can fly, right?
I thought he looked like him.
Right? That's canon. How does he get to the location in The Hobbit? He just suddenly appears. He clearly flew there.
Air.
Yeah,
he's like Nike Airs. That's all he wears on his feet. And there you go. That's the 3 rings. So then also, interestingly, the 3 Elven rings are the only ones that are kind of used. They're the only ones that kind of have powers that help to protect and help other people, to heal and encourage other people. Whereas the other 17 rings are all about power and strengthening the wearer of the ring. The wearer of the ring, the bearer of the ring. So these three had a very different element to all the other ones, I suppose. So I have one last question for you, Dave, which is
very good.
Why didn't Gandalf suspect Bilbo's ring to be the One Ring? As I said, the other rings, the powerful rings, these elven rings, and also the other rings that we will speak about again, all had jewels set into them. And Bilbo had this magic ring that had no jewels set into it. So why didn't Gandalf kind of go, that's probably the One Ring?
Because of that reason. Is it not because it didn't have a jewel on it? And all the other ones, the elven ones had jewels, right? But what about all the dwarf and...
The other ones did as well, yeah.
The men's.
Pretty much all of them, yeah.
They all had... Was there was other... Oh, I thought there was some rings of power that just looked like golden bands, or just kind of regular rings that were created.
Yes. Okay. So we've spoken about how many magic rings are there? How many great rings of power are there? There are 20 great rings of power, but that's not all of the rings of power. There were...
Okay, so there was loads of other ones that were created around the same time.
Well, remember, how long did it take the elves to learn
It took them ages. It took them 300 years, man.
It took them 300 years to learn the process.
So they had so many crappy little ones.
Yeah, they're actually called...
They're
actually called the lesser rings. So during that period, they made loads of... It's like if you're... I don't know, if you want to design this big project and you make little crappy models along the way, they made loads of... What?
prototypes.
Yeah, basically prototypes. So they made these lesser rings, and all of them were similar in appearance to the One Ring. So they were all just plain gold bands. So there were loads of these just knocking around Middle Earth, and Gandalf just assumed that Bilbo's one was one of those ones. So
But Gandalf did have his suspicions as well.
He did.
Maybe not that it was the One Ring, but he was like, something's not good here. And he was suspicious enough that he had to go and learn about the One Ring. So.
After God, it took him long enough to be like, wait a minute. So Gandalf, not the sharpest. But
no.
But then there is also actually another mention of the Lesser Rings where basically Sauron is trying to get his One Ring, and this is off the top of my head now, I can barely remember, but basically he offers the three I'm really not going to remember this correctly. I can't remember who, if it was to the elves or it couldn't have been to the elves. He gets 3 dwarven rings, I believe it is, and he offers them to the dwarves, and he says, I'll give you these 3 rings if you can help me get back 1 ring, which is just it's just like a lesser ring. And he's like, Bilbo Baggins has my ring. He's talking about the One Ring. But he says it's just the lesser of rings or something like that. And the dwarves are just like, nah, feck off. We don't want anything to do with you. So,
Do I have to leave mine? Then no. It's like if somebody asked me to do something, I'm like, do I have to get off the couch? It's like, then no.
3 were given to the elves, immortal, wisest, and fairest of all beings.
So that's it for another episode of the Council of Elrond. We hope you enjoyed that and learned a few things about the Elven Rings of Power. We will be doing episodes on all the Rings of Power seen in The Lord of the Rings, so keep an eye out for those and subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss them. Thank you, as always, to our patrons, our subscribers, our listeners, and viewers. We would probably do this anyway, even if nobody was listening, but it's amazing to us that you guys want to tune in and hear our little conversations on Lord of the Rings. So thank you so much for that. There will be more episodes and videos coming soon, but in the meantime, don't be hasty. See you next time, guys.
Adios.